Alright folks, now before we get started with the actual stats of the Yo-Tanks, all the servers are getting the Lunar Marathon for the WZ-114, and this vehicle did not get changed much. So it became a premium, making more credits. It has the ability to make bonds now, but all the normal stats are the same. So garbage gun, dramatically still garbage. Garbage DPM for tier 9. Garbage aim time for a heavy tank, and garbage, terrible, horrendous dispersion factors for artillery pieces. Yes, this vehicle has worse dispersion factors while moving than artillery piece. So compare this to something like a GW Tiger. It's worse shooting on movement than artillery. So you can never actually hit a target while moving this tank. Never. Well, very rarely, but holy crap, that is terrible. I mean, Traverse is alright, but compare this to something like a heavy tank, like a, say, 50 TP, or there you go. Yeah, it's super terrible. It's like twice as less accurate than the 50 TP. Holy shit. Using about the same 130mm caliber gun. So yeah, DPM also suck. So yeah, sucky top speed, sucky accuracy. Well, it's a premium now, so that's a plus. Well, let's move on to the Yo-Tanks, but already made a video about the WZ-114. The rating still practically stay the same, so it's a 3.5 out of 10, but you can take a look at what the hell is a WZ-114 video, but it's a premium now, so that's a good thing, I guess. Ugh. Let's move on to the Yo-Tanks. So starting with the T1 heavy tank, you have to research the 76 M1A1. It's not a bad gun, high DPM for a tier 5, and it's like the Wolverine or T67, but slightly less DPM, even though you have more health, so just trade DPM. So researching the Pawlack will cost you about 28,000 XP, average-ish, and this vehicle is more or less like a medium tank. So let's take a look at the research path before we move on to the armor model. So you can upgrade the 76mm with more pen and better accuracy. Also, this gun weighs less than the M1A2 76mm, so you don't have to worry about the tracks. You can research the radio if you already did the medium tank line or the tank destroyer line, I believe. Yeah, the tank destroyers also have it, as well as artillery. But engine weighs the same. Yep, engine weighs the same, so you don't have to worry about the tracks until you get to the turret. So you can upgrade the gun, the engine, and the tracks, then move on to the turret. But turret will give you more view range, better armor, and better traverse. And there's a 90mm after that, but 90mm has worse DPM and longer aim time, but better penetration and better alpha, so give or take. So let's take a look at the vehicle, but this reminds me of a medium tank, not really a heavy tank, and I don't trust Wargaming with their armor profile, so let's take a look. But let's strap on the better tracks, better engine, better radio. We'll keep the stock turret just so we can see the armor for now. So stock turret wise, you have the mantlet, which is about 140mm effective. And shots will be jammed into the mantlet, you'll get pinned, but if they miss, it will bounce. Cupola is a lot smaller, so that's good. And Wargaming lied about the upper plate armor. It's only 40 at the front. Resulting into about 60mm effective. Driver hatch, about 100mm effective. Lying bastards. It's not 130 to 160. Lying sons of bitches. It's only about 110 at the upper plate. So 76mm slope upwards, but it's not 160. The only 160 parts are the cheek aspect beneath the turret. So for the turret ring support, yeah, it's about 170-ish. Don't shoot here, but most likely you're going to auto aim onto the upper plate, and it's only about 60 millimeters effective. Lying bastards. It's not 160 like a Oni. Bullcrap. Side armor 63, so don't side scrape much. But this vehicle has the engine power, obviously. So with the stock turret, it's about 18 horsepower per ton ratio, but I do recommend you getting the top turret for better armor protection on the turret, as well as view range and traverse. But it's high mobility for a heavy tank, so upgrading the turret will give you more armor and faster traverse with 10 more meters of view range. Cupola is more prominent, but you'll get pinned on the hull anyway, so who the hell cares? So with the upgraded turret, 160 for the mantlet front, a little bit better, but hey, cupola is bigger, but hey, shoot the upper plate, don't worry about that. And horsepower per ton ratio drops to 17.71. So in my opinion, don't use the 90mm. The 90mm will shave your DPM down to about 1700. So if you're using the top 76mm, you get less DPM for sure, or less penetration, but more DPM. So that's a bigger trade-off if you're playing a flanking medium tank. This thing doesn't have frontal upper plate armor, so you should play this thing like a Sherman EZ8. Well, yeah, like a Sherman EZ8. It has about the same horsepower per ton ratio and about the same top speed. Sherman EZ8 has about 48 and about 18 horsepower per ton ratio. So don't know why they say it's faster than a Sherman EZ8, but holy shit. Well, I do have the turbocharger boost, but it's not faster than a Sherman EZ8. Granted, it has a little bit better hull armor on the sides of the turret support, but okay, I love my Shermans. Don't know what the hell they're talking about. So for this vehicle, oh man, yeah, play it with the upgraded 76, upgrade the turret, and don't worry about the tracks until last, but don't use the 90mm, just use the 76. That's my opinion. So moving on to the tier 7 with the M2Y. So researching right here. So once you research the 90mm, you get to research the M2Y. This thing only has two 90mm, so no 105. You already have the radio researched, so don't worry about that. Engine is the same weight, so you can research the engine before you research anything else. No worries. Or research the tracks. But upgraded turret weighs a little bit more than the stock turret, and you don't need the tracks for the upgraded turret, but you do need it for the gun. So okay, upgraded gun has about 20 more millimeters of pen than the stock 90mm. Slightly better DPM, slightly better accuracy and aim time, but not much, just like single digits or 2 digits. So let's take a look at the M2Y. Stock turret reminds me of an egghead or cone head. Oh man, that's terribly looking. Alright, so upgrade the tracks, upgrade the engine, the radio. Stock 90mm has 1600 DPM, so it's workable, but yeah, I mean, it's still a 90. It's like playing with a Super Hellcat in a sense, so penetration alpha, average. Cone head or egghead, 100mm for the Iridium-ish of a cupola. So yeah. Oh, that's not the Iridium cupola. That's just a normal non-MG cupola, but it's only 90mm. So meh. You also have a shot trap underneath the gun mantlet. So this is only about 200mm. There was a strip of green. There it is. 83mm. So shot trap underneath the mantlet into that part will pin. Also, you have the cleft nose or cheeks. So shot trap into the top of the hull might happen. Top of the hull is only 38mm. So shot trap might happen. Alright, fine. But once you upgrade the turret, it's not as prominent of a shock trap, so shock trap got removed. It should be about 200 millimeters effective now. 250, so a lot better. And at the middle parts are 230, so for normal tanks at tier 7, they can't pin that, but they'll just shoot the MG M1 cupola right here. It is huge. It is only 115, 10-ish millimeters effective. Oh god. Upper plate, about 200 millimeters effective. Not bad, but then again, it's slightly better than a T29. Slightly. It's taller. Lower plate, egg-shaped. Better. But it's still about 160-ish to 140-ish. There are a few aspects are weak spots. But you also have the machine gun boob for the radio operator. Or who the hell sits here? Who the hell operates this machine gun? I mean, there is a radio operator for T29. There's only 4-man crew for this vehicle. I mean, unless this is going for the loader. The driver sits here. The loader sits here. The commander, the gunner, commander, gunner, loader? I have no idea. Somebody operates this machine gun, but who the hell knows? So, not the radio operator for that matter. But with the upgraded 90mm, we can see that DPM gets buffed a little bit. Mostly you want the penetration, but god, the cupola is huge. It has less mobility now than the tier 6 counterpart. Dramatically less horsepower per ton ratio. Dramatic. And view range only 10 more meters. You do have a lot better survivability, so this becomes a traditional heavy tank compared to a medium tank. So play it like a heavy tank, but I still prefer my T29 for some reason. And the side of the turret is huge. The side of the, well, T29 is not as big, but still 76mm. Ugh, 70 for the hull. Do have the spare tracks as a buffer to your mistakes, but overall, yeah, I mean, why couldn't this thing get a 105, right? Just, okay, moving on. Moving on to the tier 8. So researching the M3Y, you have to research the 90mm. So all of them have to research the guns to get to the next level. And with the M3Y, let's see, 90mm and the 105. Obviously, you could use both guns, but the 90 is more like Action X Centurion, so with a 20-pounder, so rapid DPM, and it weighs slightly more than the stock 90mm, but you get dramatic change in terms of penetration. Yeah, 180 to 220, that is dramatic. DPM is close enough, like about 120 more, but why am I doing this when I can just do this? God, I'm stupid. But yeah, accuracy slightly better. The biggest change you want is the penetration. And for a tier 8, I recommend you just free XP to the 90mm and just use it. So don't wait to do the stock grind, which is terrible. But engine wise, it weighs the same, so you don't have to worry about the engine upgrade before you research the tracks. So what I recommend to do with this vehicle is free XP the gun, grind out the engine, then research the turret or research the tracks. But the turret weighs about 10, a little bit more than the stock turret, but it's also debatable which gun you want to use. So the 90mm is very reliable compared to the 105, but still both guns are good. Whoa. You actually get more DPM with the 105? What? You get better accuracy, more DPM, and the same aim time, just less penetration with the 105. How the hell does that work? I thought you had to trade off the DPM for the Top Gun. That is insane. So let's take a look at this vehicle, but this should be the sweet spot on the whole tech tree for the Yo tanks. So let's upgrade the gun first into a 90, upgrade the tracks, upgrade the engine, and the radio. So we'll stick with the stock turret for now, but stock turret wise, the cupola is shifted to the center rather than the starboard side of the vehicle. So DPM wise, 2000 DPM stock grind, not bad without a rammer. And mobility, 15 horsepower per ton ratio, also not bad. It's close to a T32 and only 380 meters of view range, which is okay, but that's before the upgrade to the turret. So frontal hull armor is about 208 to 10-ish, which is better than the T32. Egg shape lower hull, so this will troll, and it's about 190 millimeters effective, so pretty good. And when you're hull down like this, it's about 250 to 234, so that's pretty good upper plate and lower plate. But then again, lower plate is slightly more prominent than a T32, slightly. It's more rounded, so like an egg shape. But stock turret, you have the cleft, so 230-ish millimeters effective, 230-ish mantlet, 240 above 400. Don't shoot above the turret unless you're shooting at the cupola, but yeah, cupola is pretty prominent and it's not as strong as a T32. But then again, the stock T32's turret is a Pershing turret, so that thing is already pretty weak. You could get shot trapped with the stock turret, so remember about the cleft, so be careful of that, but it's still pretty thick. Holy crap. Alright, switching to the upgraded turret. They moved the cupola around. There's still the cleft, but let's take a look at the armor. So with the upgraded turret, alright, I mean 280. That's pretty thick. That's pretty good. And cupola is smaller in terms of the roundedness, and it's about 140 compared to 100. So, alright. Yeah, I mean, it's about 300 millimeters at the base. That's pretty good. So let's take a look at which gun you should use on this vehicle. But with the 90 millimeter, you have about 2,300 DPM. So Action X Carnarvon-esque of a DPM, which is pretty good. But switching to 105, slightly less DPM. What the hell did it has? What? Why did it say it has more DPM with the 105 than with the 90? Yeah, it says it has more DPM with the 105 than with the 90. I think that's because of the turret. The turret gives a bonus to the gun performance. So when you have the turret, obviously it also gives the bonus to the gun as well. So this is counting without the top turret. This is counting with the top turret. So I think that might be the factor. But yeah, I mean, both guns are viable. This vehicle seems the best out of the previews. So, I mean, this DPM is not bad. The only downside is the penetration, but you have the mobility to make it work. So it's like playing with a T32, except more of a prominent weak spot in terms of the cupola, but the T32 does not get a good 90 millimeter. So the 90 millimeter on the T32 is like a Pershing without the DPM. Yeah, not bad. I mean, this might be the best out of all of them. But moving on to the M6Y, so you don't have to research the 105 for this vehicle, but ooh, 160,000 XP is pretty dramatic for a tier 9 from a tier 8. And you have to research the 105. This gun is not available on the M3Y, so it's not the same gun. Yeah, it's not the same gun. It's a different version, but it has less DPM, less accuracy, well, longer aim time, but has better pin than the 90 millimeter. Well, 30 more millimeters is dramatic, but alpha wise, it's still only 320 for a 105 millimeter. So it's like a tier 8s or tier 7s 105. That sucks. So it weighs less. So you don't have to worry about tracks when you're trying to research the gun, and recommend you free XP to the gun. So don't worry about the stock grind, especially on tier 9. Tier 9 stock grinds are painful. Engine, same way, so don't worry about the tracks when researching the engine. And upgraded turret requires the tracks. It weighs a lot more than the, well, Yeah, only 1,000 kilograms. So you cannot put equipment on this vehicle without putting the upgraded. Well, then again, you can shave off the gun. So you can research the gun first. That will shave some weight off for you to put equipment before putting on the turret. So technically, you don't have to research the tracks for the turret. But getting the gun also requires the tracks, so even less DPM and longer aim time and worse accuracy, but has the alpha. American British gun. It's not an autoloader. So let's take a look at the stock turret. This stock turret looks a lot different. Looks like a squished T-57 Heavy's turret. It's cute. Pretty cute. So switching to the 105 and the radio. So let's take a look at the stock turret, but large cupola or commander machine gun mini cupola or whatever the hell that thing is. Holy shit. It's a big ass tumor. And turret front. Ooh, 210. Slow backwards into a trapezoid shape. 90 at the top of the turret. So about 250, 270 millimeters effective. 270-ish. Support structure for the oscillation part of the turret is 290 millimeters effective. So you might think shooting here will pin. Nah. There are a few aspects just beneath the support that you can pin. It's a very small aspect. It's like right there. That's like 140, but it's just below or just behind the support for the oscillation part of the turret. That's a very small strip. I mean, unless you get trolled and RNG happens. There are a few crevices they shoot between the gun or the turret section. So right here, you can jam a shell into the oscillation part of the turret and shot trap it in there. So that would be fun. But overall, armor wise, pretty decent for the stock turret. Other than the tumor on top. 130 millimeters effective. God. If you don't have that thing, this thing will be so much better. Like a Concept 1B, right? No, you cannot have that. Upper plate, worse than a tier 8 a little bit, about 210. Lower plate, 220. This might be worse than a tier 8 upper plate. So hull armor is not as effective as a M3Y. Alright, fine. Looks like a mini T-57 heavy turret. Or squished T-57 heavy turret. But it has a large ass cupola in the back. God damn. 88 for the side of the turret. 88 for the side of the hull. Meh. Alright, moving on to the top turret. So it becomes a rounded shape. Alright. I mean, with this, oof, it's 262 rounded backwards. Don't even think about it. But you do have the support weak spot for the cupola. You also have the cupola weak spot. So basically, if you miss the cupola, you can actually hit the periscope mount in front of it, and that will still likely pin if you have a high caliber. Oh, I mean, do you still have the crevices they can shoot at? Yeah, you still have some crevices they can jam a shot into underneath the structure mount, but there are a few parts on the structure mount that are weak, like middle parts, like right there. What the hell is this? Well, that's the engine block in the back. Alright. But side armor, 76, 88. So don't side scrape, mostly. Just go hull down. It's like Kronwagen in a sense. Alright, moving on to the final tier 10 with the M5Y. You don't have to reach. Oh, forgot to talk about the DPM. That's another thing. Don't mess about the DPM. Have to do that. So switching to tracks, switching to turrets, switching to engine, switching to radio. 105 has about 2,400 DPM. Not bad for a tier 9 heavy tank. That's all right. The only downside is the alpha, obviously. So meh. Switching to 120, you get 200 less DPM or so, and less penetration but more alpha. I don't know which gun to use on this vehicle. I mean, it seems like the 105 is better choice because of the penetration. But then again, why couldn't this get the same penetration as an M103? I don't get it. Huh. Also had the cupola weak spot. Though, I mean, if this gun has like 440, that would be a lot better, but it doesn't. Debatable. I mean, balanced? Average? Alright, moving on to the M5Y. So, you have to research the Top Gun, but let's see the armor aspect of this vehicle. That's what's most important about heavy tanks, but the Jar Jar Binks frontal nostrils are not weak spots. Well, they're still 250. The nostrils are still 250-ish, slope backwards, but they're small targets. Oh my gosh. Cupola is small-ish, but it's still the weak spot, about 160-ish. Periscope, yeah, don't shoot the periscopes. They're very small and hard to hit. Support structures, there are a few parts that are like really thin. What the hell? What the hell is this? There are like pixels of 85mm effective. Like, are these the support for the oscillation of the turret? I mean, it's what? It's underneath the gun. That's 57mm. So if you try to hide your cupola by moving the gun upwards, so if you move the gun upwards, exposing the lower part of your turret to cover your cupola, you are exposing like 57mm. That's about 160mm effective underneath the gun. There are parts that are pretty weak. Holy crap, it's only 177? Yeah, there are 88mm strips of garbage armor underneath the gun. So sometimes you'll bounce. Sometimes you get trolled if you raise the gun to hide the cupola. Well, that sucks. So what would you do when you're playing the Kranvagn is you move the gun upwards to hide the cupola, preventing shots to the cupola. So I'll show you with the Kranvagn, but if you have terrible armor underneath the gun, that doesn't work. So here is the Kranvagn. It has cupola on top. It's very small, and what will you do to hide them is elevate the gun like that. It hides the cupola. But this armor right here is still pretty thick underneath the gun. For the M3Y, you don't have that armor. So any shot to underneath the turret means damage of the gun, damage of the armor, damage of the ammo rack. That sucks. Okay, I mean, it's not as bad from this angle, but I mean, there's still parts. You will get trolled by people shooting here and pinning. Alright. Upper plate, 240-ish millimeters effective. It's rounded. Don't shoot the rounded part, shoot the center, but yeah, 220 for the lower plate. You should be hauled down. And haul down is more or less like this, about 250 millimeters effective. So obviously there are weak spots like the support structure for the tuning fork or slingshot mount. So this part is weak. Shoot here if you want to pin. Shoot here if you want to pin if the turret is angled. But if it's not angled, it's still about 250-ish. So shoot the center of the bulge, and that's about 170. That's a weak spot if you don't have the shot on the turret. But you're supposed to wiggle the turret around to prevent shots. But if you do, they can just shoot right here. Huh. Or they can shoot the inside part of the support, which is still part of the armor for some reason. Alright. Or shoot the gun mantlet. So armor is conditional. Alright, let's see which gun you should use. 105 or 120. But with the 105, it's 2700 DPM. With the 120, it's 2500. Not bad for the 120. Even though you cut down on the accuracy and the aim time sucks. I mean, 105 is more or less like a medium tank gun. I mean, you have the mobility for a medium tank-esque of a playstyle, but overall, I mean, all these vehicles feel like medium tank-esque. So let's very quickly check with the dispersion factors of all of them, just to be sure, but I forgot to do this. It's my fault. So back to the Pawlack. Oh god. Dispersion while moving the tank suck. So, I mean, if you're using the 76, it won't be as big of a problem because you have a fast reload. So, fast reload and not as bad with the 90. So, turret traverse accuracy dispersion is better with the 76. I do recommend you using the 76 on the tier 6. Mostly because you will miss while moving, but yeah, you can reload pretty quick. So that's the upside. So 90 is not as good on the tier 6. But moving on to the tier 7 with the M2Y. And dispersion factor still garbage. And this doesn't get a 76, so you have to play with a 90. So don't shoot this gun while moving as much as you would with other tanks. But compare this to a T29. Alright. Yeah, T29 has slightly better shooting on movement accuracy and a lot worse turret traverse accuracy. I did not know that. Huh. Well, then again, it couldn't be that big of a factor if I like it so much. So, might be personal bias, but DPM is about the same. Penetration is about the same. And less alpha, so you have to expose yourself more. But this tank is faster in terms of horsepower per turn ratio, top speed, and terrain resistance. So, yeah, more mobile, but bigger weak spot at the top of the turret. Alright, on to the M3Y at tier 8. M3Y. Dispersion factor is the same. All of them have the same dispersion factor while moving. That sucks. But if you're using the 90mm, it's better in terms of turret traverse accuracy. So, yeah. I mean, would you like the DPM or would you like the alpha? And less of the penetration. It's still okay, but all of them seem to have 0.24 dispersion factor while moving. And that's below average, so not something to write home about. But tier 9 M6Y, it's a little bit better with 0.22, but still garbage-ish. Better for the smaller caliber if you're using the 105 than 120. I mean, let's take a look at the final one at tier 10 with the M5Y. Much better in terms of moving. So 1.16, 0.16 is obviously better than the 0.2 something, but let's use, well, a lot more accurate than the 120 if you're using the 105. So overall, you should play these vehicles like medium tanks, not exactly like heavy tanks. And armor is debatable. I mean, there are a few trollish shots, but you're supposed to use the mobility to throw off the shots and wiggle the turret around. But is it better than a T110E5 line when you're playing a heavy tank line? Well, compare this to a T110E5 as, well, if you're using the 105, obviously that's not going to count, but it has less accuracy while moving the gun, less accuracy in total, longer reload, less DPM by one shell too, better top speed slightly, better reverse speed slightly, better horsepower per turn ratio slightly, but the same terrain resistance, same, well, better gun depression, better gun elevation, and better turret front. So it's a more mobile version of a heavy tank. So you have less DPM, sure, but you have more mobility, and you should use that to your playstyle. So overall, the Yo tanks are more like medium tanks if you're going to play them, like pseudo medium / heavy tanks with some decent situational armor. But obviously, don't depend on them as a, super heavy tank or like a super conqueror. It's not a super conqueror. It's not going to bounce all the shells in the world, especially with the hull armor, and especially with situational stuff like the supports for the gun or whatever. But there are times that you're going to get shot trapped because of the roundedness of the turret front, and this will jam shots into the roof of the hull, which is pretty weak, about 50. So shot trap, jam downwards into the into the hull roof, and you get ammo racked, or it's a very cramped vehicle. So any shot traps will likely damage the ammo rack because of the supports, or even the turret itself. So that would suck. But there you go, folks. The actual stats of the Yo tanks. So basically, Wargaming lied about the tier 6. They lied about the some of the armors of the tier 9s. So this thing does not have 160 millimeters effective, other than the supports for the gun turret ring. That's pretty much it. The frontal upper plate is 40, slope backwards at about 60 millimeters effective. That's not 160, you lying bastards. It's more of a medium tank. Well, there you go, folks. Hopefully you guys know more about the not the Polish, not the Pawlack, the American Yo tanks. But play them like medium tanks. You'll have a better time. Don't play them like traditional heavies. Absolutely do not play them like a Kronwagen or play them like a Super Conqueror. They're not like a Super Conqueror. You cannot beat a Super Conqueror in terms of DPM. No, you cannot. You cannot beat this vehicle in terms of penetration with 120, and in terms of the accuracy as well as DPM. This thing has so much DPM, and the cupola is a lot smaller and rounded. So don't play the Yo tanks like a Super Conqueror. It does not work like that. Play it like a medium tank. It has more mobility. Use it to your advantage and flank around and do some medium tank stuff. But yeah, there you go, folks. Well, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.